The sun rose slowly over the village, spilling golden light on the worn wooden doors and the thatched roofs of the small houses. Smoke from cooking fires twisted into the sky, carrying the rich aroma of stew simmering in clay pots. Inside one modest home, the walls were lined with simple shelves, worn from years of use, yet the house hummed with life. In the kitchen, a younger sibling stirred the pot, humming a soft tune, while the eldest helped sweep the dirt floor. Their movements were practiced, familiar, each one knowing their role, each one supporting the other without a word. The mother, sitting on a low stool, mended a torn cloth, her eyes sharp and watchful. "Did you finish sweeping the veranda, Io?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "Yes, Mama," the child replied, eyes downcast, a hint of pride in the careful lines of the swept earth. The eldest sibling glanced toward the stove, lips pressing together. "Your stew smells better than yesterday," he said, a smile masking a flicker of rivalry. Laughter rang briefly, but under the warmth, a quiet tension simmered. Whispers exchanged between siblings, subtle glances at each other's chores, and tiny, unspoken comparisons were threads weaving beneath the surface of this close-knit household. In the corner, sitting by the window, the protagonist traced a finger along the wooden sill, watching dust motes dance in the morning sunlight. At 22, their mind was restless, full of curiosity and dreams that stretched far beyond the humble walls. Each day was a delicate balance, small jobs in the marketplace, carrying messages for neighbors, studying by candlelight late into the night, and tending to family duties without complaint. They sighed softly, knowing that each step toward a better life had to be silent. Dreams could excite hearts, or stir envy. And in a home where every eye was watchful, ambition often had to remain hidden. That evening, beneath the soft glow of the setting sun, a letter arrived, slipped under the door. Hands trembling, the protagonist picked it up, breaking the wax seal with a careful flick. The words inside revealed what no one had guessed: they had won $150 million. Shock froze them. Their heart raced, a strange mixture of disbelief and joy surging through their chest. They read the letter again, whispering the numbers aloud, 150 million. Their minds swirled with possibilities and dangers. What did this fortune mean for the family, for the village? How would they use it? And more importantly, could it remain a secret? That night, sleep came uneasily. Dreams were filled with questions, the expectations of sharing wealth, the gaze of the neighbors, the judgment of elders. In African villages, fortune did not exist in isolation. Fortune demanded responsibility, humility, and careful discretion. Weeks passed, and small changes began to appear. A new pair of shoes appeared on the protagonist's feet, polished and clean. A carefully folded shirt, brighter than the usual garb, rested in their drawer. They traveled to the market with an unfamiliar confidence, speaking to traders with a quiet authority that drew attention. Under the baobab tree at the edge of the village, neighbors began to whisper. "Have you seen how Io carries himself now?" one asked softly, eyes darting around. "Something has changed. He is no longer like before." Children played nearby, but even they paused to watch the protagonist pass. The communal gaze was sharp and unyielding. In the village, no action went unnoticed, no change remained secret for long. The protagonist sensed it too, the eyes following, the hushed conversations, the weight of curiosity and envy settling like a shadow. They knew the first stirrings of tension had begun. And the path ahead, though paved with opportunity, would also be lined with scrutiny and moral trials. That evening, the village air was thick with the scent of smoke and rain-damp earth. Inside the modest home, the family gathered for supper, the clatter of wooden spoons against bowls echoing softly. The elder of the household, Grandmother Amma, whose hair was silver like moonlight and whose eyes had witnessed decades of joy and sorrow, cleared her throat. "Io," she began, her voice low but firm, "you walk a path that few understand. A hidden treasure can lift a man higher than the tallest tree, but it can also crush him beneath its weight." The protagonist looked up, heart skipping a beat. "Grandmother." "No words yet," Amma interrupted gently, her gaze steady. "Let me tell you a story. Once, a man found a golden calabash in the forest. He hid it, afraid others would claim it. But each day, the calabash weighed heavier in his heart. His family grew distant, his neighbors whispered, and soon, the forest itself seemed to watch him with judgment. Only when he shared even a little of the calabash's gift did peace return. Remember this, child, gold is not measured by what you hold, but by what you share without fear. Silence settled, heavy but instructive. The protagonist nodded, torn between the allure of personal freedom and the wisdom of the elder's words. Amma's eyes softened. Your heart knows the balance, Io. Listen, and do not let fear of envy blind you. Later, outside the home, shadows lengthened across the village. As the protagonist walked past the marketplace, a crow landed on the fence, its black eyes watching. Mothers whispered to one another, children paused in play, and a calabash, old and cracked, rolled slightly in the dust, unnoticed by most. These were quiet signs, omens of tension to come. Even in the beauty of daily life, the seeds of jealousy and rivalry had already taken root. The air seemed charged with anticipation, as though the village itself held its breath, waiting to see what choices the young dreamer would make. Days passed in secret planning. One evening, by candlelight, the protagonist signed papers and shook hands with a broker from the city. A new house would rise, a shining place of ambition, walls of polished stone, windows that caught the sun like mirrors, and doors large enough to welcome a future imagined for decades. The house stood as a promise: independence, opportunity, and freedom, a beacon glittering against the modest roofs of the village. Yet, even in the joy of this dream, the protagonist felt the weight of the elders' warning. The treasure they carried was beautiful, yes, but also a secret that could stir envy, resentment, and testing from those closest to their heart. As night fell, the lights of the new home glimmered faintly in the distance, a whisper of triumph and caution intertwined, setting the stage for the trials, jealousy, and drama soon to unfold. The days passed, and whispers began to ripple quietly through the household. At first, it was small things: the polished shoes Io wore to the market, the neatly folded shirts brighter than the earth-toned clothes everyone wore. A basket of fresh fruits appeared on the table, exotic and unusual, sparking surprise. Even the way Io walked with a certain confidence drew glances from siblings and neighbors alike. "I noticed Io went to the market yesterday," whispered one sister to another, her eyes narrowing. "Carrying coins heavier than before, and with that city man he never speaks of." The other replied softly, glancing around to make sure no one heard. "Maybe he is hiding something, or earning more than we think." The conversation spread like sparks in dry grass. Children paused their play, neighbors nodded knowingly under the baobab tree, and the subtle, communal gaze of the village felt heavier on Io's shoulders each day. The weight of observation, ever present, reminded them that no secret stays hidden where many eyes watch closely. One evening, the elders of the family gathered near the hearth, their faces etched with years of knowledge and discernment. Grandfather Kofi's gaze fell on Io, steady and piercing. "Io," he said slowly, "we see change in you. The steps you take are lighter, yet your pockets, heavier. Secrets are like rivers. They flow, yet they can overflow, spilling upon those who are near." Io bowed respectfully, heart tight with tension. "Grandfather, I mean no harm. I only wish to walk a path of my own." Kofi shook his head. "Walking alone is a test, child. In our village, wealth is a thread connecting family and community. To hide it is to tempt both envy and misfortune." Not all were quiet observers. The younger relatives watched with a mixture of awe and bitterness. A cousin, holding a small cup of palm wine, forced a smile while slipping a comment under their breath. "Quite the fancy clothes, Io. I wonder how many moons it took to gather such." Another sibling, pretending disinterest, leaned close and whispered, "Perhaps one day we will all taste this fortune, or be left wanting." Admiration mingled with resentment. Eyes that once held simple love now carried suspicion. Small gestures, slight bows, half-hearted laughter, polite nods, betrayed hidden envy and unspoken comparisons, while the protagonist maintained calm, knowing that each glance and whispered word could tip the fragile balance of family ties. Evenings settled into silence, but the undercurrent of tension remained, like a storm waiting beyond the horizon, foreshadowing the trials that would soon test loyalty, morality, and the bonds of blood. The market buzzed with life under the morning sun. Women called out their wares, children ran barefoot between stalls, and the aroma of roasted maize mingled with the earthy scent of the village. Yet, among the chatter, whispers carried like wind through the trees. "Have you noticed Io's clothes? Not the usual earth tones, shiny, new. Something is different," an older neighbor murmured to her friend, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. "They say he goes to the city often, and always returns with coins heavier than before," the other whispered back, lips tight with curiosity and judgment. Even children, innocent in play, repeated what they had overheard, tilting their heads with wide eyes as if trying to make sense of adult secrets. The village watched closely, every movement noted, every step weighed. Io felt it, the unseen gaze of the community, a pressure as heavy as the sun overhead. Each polite greeting was met with curious eyes, each careful word scrutinized, and a subtle tension hung in the air. That night, as the house grew quiet, Io lay under the thin blanket, eyes staring at the rough wooden ceiling. The room felt smaller somehow, crowded with shadows and thoughts. In the darkness, the ancestors appeared, not as ghosts, but as vivid visions, tall, solemn figures shrouded in glowing cloth, eyes filled with the wisdom of generations. A flock of black birds circled above, their wings slicing the night sky. A calabash, broken in half, lay on the earth beside them. "You have been given a gift," one voice said, deep and echoing, "but beware the weight of greed. Those close may seek to take what you guard, and jealousy can blind even the hearts of kin." Io's hands trembled. I wish to honor you, my ancestors, but I fear the envy it brings." The next morning brought tests already. A younger sibling approached, smiling too widely, hand outstretched. "Io, could I borrow some money for a small project? I promise I'll return it next week." Later, a cousin arrived, bringing news of a distant relative in need, hinting strongly that help was expected. "Surely you can spare something," they said casually, eyes flicking toward Io's careful posture. Each request carried an undercurrent, subtle manipulations revealing hidden motives. Io felt the strain, balancing loyalty to family against the need to protect what had been earned, knowing that a wrong move could break trust or invite resentment. Even the air seemed thick with caution, every smile measured, every word weighed. The house no longer felt merely safe, it was a stage where hearts were tested, intentions revealed, and the true measure of family loyalty awaited. Rain clouds gathered slowly over the village, dark and heavy, mirroring the tension inside the modest family home. Io watched quietly from the doorway as siblings whispered behind cupped hands and exchanged small glances that cut sharper than knives. A borrowed tool disappeared from the storeroom. Coins went missing from a small pouch. Rumors traveled faster than the wind, some claiming Io had wealth beyond imagination, others suggesting secret inheritances or favoritism. "Did you hear what Nia said?" whispered one cousin to another. "She thinks Io's money is already theirs." "She'll see soon enough," the other replied, voice low. "But it's dangerous to speak too loud." The drum from the village center beat steadily, a distant warning. Each pulse felt like the heartbeat of unrest, echoing through the walls and into Io's chest. Every glance, every hushed conversation, reminded Io that family loyalty could fracture under the weight of envy. At night, alone under the flickering lamp, Io's chest felt tight. Guilt gnawed at the edges of happiness. Should I have shared sooner? Am I being selfish? Thoughts raced with fear of betrayal, anxiety over judgment, and the pressing need to protect what had been quietly won. Fingers traced the edges of the letter that revealed the $150 million fortune, mind calculating each step, each response. "I cannot let greed break what we have, but I must also survive this," Io murmured, eyes closing as visions of ancestors hovered, nodding solemnly. Plans formed slowly, carefully, how to navigate love, envy, and obligation without surrendering the dream they had fought to hold. The next morning, wind swept through the village, shaking the trees violently. It was as if nature itself sensed the storm within the household. Curiosity drew the family into the house under the pretense of concern. Then, in a quiet, trembling moment, a ledger fell from Io's shelf, revealing the vast sum saved and invested over months. Gasps filled the air. Siblings' faces twisted in disbelief, envy, and sudden admiration. Parents' hands covered their mouths, eyes wide with shock and confusion. The wind rattled the doors as if echoing the emotional turbulence within, shaking the very foundation of trust. Voices rose, urgent and emotional. "How could you hide this from us?" demanded a brother, fists tightening. "We thought we were struggling together," cried a sister, tears streaking her face. A mother's voice trembled, filled with both love and fear. "Io, child, why did you not tell us?" Some relatives stepped forward, hands outstretched, eyes calculating. "Surely, some of this belongs to us as well," one said, tone both pleading and greedy. In the chaos, a treasured heirloom tipped from its shelf and shattered on the floor. A photograph fell, torn at the edges, the faces of past generations staring back at them with silent judgment. The fragility of family bonds lay bare, reflected in the storm outside and the heartbreak inside. Through the shouting, Io remained calm, eyes steady, heart pounding with sorrow, guilt, and resolve. The house, once a private symbol of dreams and ambition, now felt the tremors of human nature, testing loyalty, morality, and love under the weight of revelation. The storm outside raged, wind lashing against the walls, shaking the windows like the heartbeat of the unsettled family. Inside, the air was thick with tension, heavier than the rain-scented night. Io stood in the center of the room, ledger in hand, observing the subtle dance of greed and hope around them. A cousin, trying to mask eagerness with polite smiles, stepped forward. Io, perhaps you could share just a little. Surely family comes before pride. A brother, voice low but sharp, added, we all struggle together. Why are you keeping so much for yourself? Io's eyes swept over the faces of kin, noticing the shadows cast by the flickering lamp. Mirrors on the walls reflected more than appearances. They reflected hidden intentions, the unspoken hunger for wealth, the quiet glances exchanged in secrecy. A small ancestral figurine on the mantel seemed to watch, its carved eyes reminding Io of the weight of truth and morality. Some relatives slumped in silent disappointment, faces etched with love and worry, while others leaned forward with greed barely hidden. Io felt the surge of betrayal, sharp as a thorn. Each request, each word, revealed the true measure of loyalty, who sought connection, and who sought the gold alone. A single bird flitted past the window, wings slicing through the storm-dark sky. It cried once, then disappeared into the clouds, a silent echo of fragile bonds now trembling under pressure. Io's hand shook, heart heavy with the realization that love and envy often walked side by side. Tears glistened in the eyes of siblings, and some remained silent, caught between loyalty and desire. Then, the elders rose. Grandmother Amma's voice cut through the tension, steady as the drumbeats calling the village to council. Stop, she commanded, palm raised, eyes scanning each face. Listen to the lessons of our people. Wealth is a gift, yes, but it is also a test. Those who take without heart will be empty. Those who share without greed will endure. Grandfather Kofi stepped forward, tapping the carved drum gently. Each beat echoed in the room, a rhythm that slowed the rapid pulse of fear and anger. Remember your roots. Respect your kin. A family divided by gold is a tree cut at the root. The storm outside shows the turbulence in our hearts. Calm yourselves, and choose wisely. The room fell into a tense hush. Even the wind seemed to pause, listening. Shadows softened, mirrors reflected faces no longer twisted by immediate anger, and the ancestral figurines seemed to glow faintly, a reminder that morality and tradition still held sway over human desire. Io exhaled slowly, feeling a small measure of clarity, though the choices ahead would test patience, courage, and the bonds of blood more than ever. The rain had passed, leaving the earth damp and fragrant. Io lit a single candle in the center of the room, its flame flickering like the fragile hope within. Shadows danced across the walls, and the ancestral figurines seemed to lean forward, watching, judging, guiding. One by one, family members approached, each carrying intentions cloaked in manners and smiles. Io observed quietly, noting who lingered in genuine concern and who hovered too long, eyes flicking toward the newly acquired treasures. I only wish for guidance, Io, said a younger cousin, hands folded respectfully. Your choices affect all of us, but I follow your heart. The words were simple, yet they carried weight heavier than gold. In contrast, a sibling hovered, offering veiled compliments while dropping hints about money, investments, and future claims. Io felt the subtle push and pull of loyalty and opportunism, like wind tugging at the candle's flame. Carefully, Io placed a small offering on the mantel, a bowl of fresh water, a piece of kola nut, a simple prayer whispered to ancestors. The flames steadied, illuminating the room with a gentle warmth. This act, though quiet, signaled clarity and discernment, a spiritual test to reveal hearts that sought connection over coin. Later, alone beneath the moonlight streaming through the window, Io faced the heart's deepest conflict. Do I forgive those who sought only gain? Do I share selectively with the worthy? Or do I guard this fortune entirely? Every choice carried the weight of family, tradition, and moral consequence. That night, sleep brought visions. The ancestors appeared, not as shadows but as luminous figures along a flowing river. Their voices were calm yet firm. Child, wealth is not merely in what you hold, but in what you give wisely. Choose with the heart that honors both your family and your soul. Light broke through the storm clouds in the dream, reflecting on the calm river. Io awoke with a steady heart, understanding that courage, discernment, and ancestral wisdom must guide the path. Modern ambition would walk hand in hand with responsibility to kin. Decisions made from this place of balance would define not only family bonds but personal integrity. With resolve, Io blew out the candle, the smoke curling like whispers of guidance. Tomorrow, the choices would be made, but tonight, clarity reigned, and the flame of wisdom burned brightly within. The morning sun peeked cautiously over the hills, scattering gold across the village roofs. The storm had passed, leaving behind the scent of wet earth and a silence heavy with reflection. Io stood at the center of the family home, calm but resolute, eyes sweeping over the faces that had carried anger, envy, and hope in equal measure. "I have decided," Io said, voice steady but soft, "to share where hearts are true and to withhold where greed rules. Love guides the hand, not desire for gold." Some relatives bowed their heads, ashamed of selfish motives. Others exhaled in relief, tears brimming in gratitude. The ancestral figurines on the mantel seemed to glow, as though nodding approval. The storm outside had cleared, and with it, the turbulence within. Broken heirlooms were replaced, mirrors polished, and the shadows that had twisted intentions now lay softened in the warm morning light. The family gathered in the courtyard, sitting quietly, absorbing the calm. Io observed each face, a sister's genuine remorse, a cousin's quiet relief, a brother's contemplative gaze. Words were few, for the weight of the conflict had been spoken in actions, tears, and silence. The sun now broke fully through the clouds, illuminating the dust settling on the village path, a subtle promise that healing had begun. Those who had acted with love over envy were embraced warmly, their loyalty recognized and honored. "You have seen with your hearts, and not with your greed," Io whispered, offering a hand to each deserving kin. The exploiters, meanwhile, retreated to their own thoughts, faces heavy with shame, learning in quiet the consequences of selfishness. Even the withered tree at the edge of the courtyard, battered by the storm, now lifted its branches to the sun, nourished by rain, a living reminder that justice and renewal had returned. Io stepped back, heart lighter, knowing that wealth was not merely coins or land, but the balance between ambition and virtue, between personal success and family bonds. The village, too, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, and the day began anew, lessons learned and harmony restored. The morning air was filled with the scent of fresh earth and sunlight, as the village stirred to life. Io walked slowly through the courtyard, observing the family bustling quietly, some repairing old fences, others tending small gardens, while laughter and chatter mingled with the sounds of roosters crowing. "I have learned," Io said softly, gathering the siblings, "that wealth is not power over you, but a responsibility we share wisely." Hands were extended to receive small gifts, seeds for the fields, books for the younger ones, and coins for urgent needs. Each act was measured with care, a lesson in prudence and humility. Io spoke gently, "Let us remember that wealth is a tool to lift hearts, not to cast shadows." The elders arrived, walking with slow, deliberate steps, their eyes carrying the weight of generations. They nodded in approval, murmuring blessings. "You honor our ways," said the matriarch, voice strong yet warm. "You show that ambition need not break the circle of family." Later, the family gathered beneath the great baobab tree at the edge of the courtyard. Its roots deep in the earth, its branches wide and protective, it seemed to hold all wisdom within its trunk. Stories were shared, laughter returned, and the young ones listened carefully, absorbing both the lessons of wealth and the traditions of kinship. Io then called for a simple meal. As everyone sat together, sharing stews and roasted maize, hands and hearts intertwined, the tension that had once shadowed the household melted. Some planted seeds nearby, others watered saplings, a living symbol of forgiveness, renewal, and hope. "I forgive the missteps of the past," Io said, voice steady and filled with warmth. "Let us grow together, stronger than before, with love and respect guiding us." The wind rustled the baobab leaves, as if echoing the wisdom of ancestors, reminding all that true prosperity is measured not by gold or grand houses, but by the strength of family, the humility of the heart, and the continuity of culture. The sun poured golden light through the open windows of the new house, touching polished wooden floors and illuminating walls adorned with ancestral artifacts. Io stood at the center, breathing in the calm of a home that was no longer just a dream but a reflection of hard-won wisdom. "See how the light fills every corner," Io said softly to a younger sibling. "This house holds more than wealth. It carries our history, our values, and the lessons we have learned together." Family members moved through the rooms, laughter gently mingling with whispered admiration. A sister touched a carved figurine on the mantel, her eyes soft with understanding. "We were foolish to envy," she murmured. "Now, we see that success does not separate, but teaches us humility." Outside, the courtyard was alive with children playing, their laughter echoing like music across the village. A gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers and the river nearby, calm and steady after recent storms. Io placed a hand on the family drum, a symbolic gesture honoring ancestors who had guided every choice. "And remember," Io said, turning to the gathered family, "as our elders always remind us, the river that flows steadily after the storm nourishes all who drink from it. Wealth, like water, must serve life, not pride." The family sat together in silence, hearts light, understanding that this home represented not only achievement but a balance between fortune and virtue, independence and heritage. The day stretched forward with promise, the village at peace, and life continuing under the same sun and sky that had always watched over them.